Welcome to the Ed O'Keefe Show. Transform your mind, accelerate your business, energize your body, and inspire the world. Now here is your host, Ed O'Keefe.
Hey, it's Ed O'Keefe. What's happening? Happy wherever time of year it is when you're listening to this. We're getting ready as I'm recording this. It's near the end of another amazing year. You probably hear crying in the background. That is my 2.5-year-old who just fell, and she's looking for an adult. But the adult, in this case, is recording an audio. No, I'm kidding. There's three adults out in the hallway. She'll be fine in just 1 second. Today I have a good friend of mine and an amazingly intelligent man. You're going to love this interview, Mr. Garrett Gunderson. Garrett, here's his formal intro, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I think about Garrett. He's the Chief Wealth Architect, what a cool title, at the Wealth Factory and author of the New York Times bestseller, Killing Sacred Cows. Now, Wealth Factory helps entrepreneurs optimize cash flow, streamline their finances, and keep more of their hard-earned money so they can make more powerful investments in their best wealth creator, their business. Garrett has appeared multiple times on ABC News Now, Your World with Neil Cavuto, on Fox, and CNBC's Squawk on the Street, and more. And his first firm made the Inc. 500. Now, you check him out at wealthfactory.com. That's wealthfactory.com. But stay at the very end. He has a book that he's actually selling on, I think it's called let me pause this real quick. I think it's called The Rockefeller's Way, that he's selling for $1,000. And in this episode, he gives you actually a text message, a phone number to text message, so you can actually get it to download directly. So that's it. I met Garrett. He was ridiculously generous. He was very kind. He's done a lot for me without ever asking anything in return. So I know you're gonna love this story. Cool dude, great guy, great dad, great husband, and somebody who's continuously looking to make his life better by helping and serving others. So that's it. I hope you enjoy. Let me know what you think. Peace. Garrett, welcome to the show, man. I'm so excited to have you on, and I just got done raving about you. So
nice.
Yeah, it's a great start there. So yeah, man, you got a lot going on, a lot of great stuff going on. This is I think this is great timing for my listeners and my clients. So first of all, how you doing?
Man, I just came off being a road warrior, and I haven't done that for a long time. It reminded me that I don't want to do that again, but it was highly profitable monetarily, but it was kind of taxing from a health standpoint and the time away from the family. But the good thing about it is it just reminded me how much I love my family, which is pretty awesome. And now I'm excited because I've booked a couple trips and things for us to do, and I'm home for quite a while. So business is really like clicking right now.
Nice.
I got to get my health a notch up. I feel like after being on the road for so long, that slipped a little bit. But man, life is great. It's a good time to be alive. Living in a lot of lessons and hard work to get to this point. But happy to be here.
Fantastic. And you have, just for everyone else, you have two. How old are your boys right now?
So 9 and 11 years old. The 11-year-old looks like he's maybe 16 or 17. He's a giant. He's like the gentle giant. And then, a little 9-year-old that's a deep extrovert that's all about having a good time. So
yeah, I love it.
You've got quite the bunch, right? Like
so
5, 6, 7.
7.
7.
7. It's a great crew, and we both have 2 boys, so that's what's awesome. And
nice.
Yeah, so you are, as I was telling everybody, you are the Chief Wealth Architect at Wealth Factory, New York Times bestseller for Killing Sacred Cows, and you have then your new book, and I don't know if you even have it up for sale or if it's something that we'll talk about how they can get it later, but about what would the Rockefellers do? Is that right?
Yeah, man, it's up for sale. There's a limited number of copies right now, so it's $1,000 on Amazon. But
I love it.
I'll hook everybody up today.
Okay, great. So we'll get to that. So let's dive in. I'm gonna since we're gonna be talking money, financial freedom, cash flow, and I'll just confess to everybody first why I'm so excited is because I listen. We met a few months ago, spent some time together, and you're a very inspiring guy. You're great shape, great energy, and I just can't wait to get this out to as many people as possible. So why don't you give everybody a little bit about your kind of like what you actually do in your words, so we can just springboard from there.
Yeah, we're really, really good at helping people keep more of what they make without having to scrimp and sacrifice or delay, or even budget. So we help people get their financial house in order, but our real objective is to get people financially independent, which means have enough recurring revenue coming in that doesn't require their daily involvement, even though they have to maybe manage it and monitor it, that it covers all their expenses because now they can swing for the fences in everything that they're doing, knowing that they have that foundation handled. So we handle all the areas where most financial people neglect, right? Like how they can keep more of their money by saving tax, saving on hidden fees and commissions, duplicate coverages with their insurance, and overpaying on interest and put that back into their life. But I think more than anything, we take a very boring, dry, horrible topic and breathe some life into it. And rather than asking people to hand us money, we're good at putting money back into their life, which I think is the counter of what a lot of, financial advice has become over the time.
Yeah, and, I think where I relate to this very much, so I'm 41 now, and it's almost like, your first few years as an entrepreneur, you're just trying to figure out how to make your first buck, and then you finally figure something out, and you fall into a lot of the traps, which I know you call sacred cows, but you start consuming mode of just, building a lifestyle, and in our case, we've done pretty well, quote unquote, but, at 41, looking back to if I could speak to my young 29, or even just year-old self, I could have saved 7 figures in listening to some of the strategies you guys teach. So, I can't wait to hear about this. So why don't we kind of dive in? So tell us, what was the behind? You wrote the book Killing Sacred Cows. I love the title. What was behind? Why did you write that book? What was the main concept behind it?
Well, before it was Killing Sacred Cows, I just wanted to be really cool and have a book. So I did nothing with it for 2 years. I wrote 72 pages because that's not very compelling reason to write a book. As you've written a book, it's a lot of work, man, and it takes a little bit bigger vision than just saying, oh yeah, this will get me clients and this will increase my positioning in the marketplace. And that's why I didn't get very far with it. And then we got our entire firm together. At the time, it was 42 people. Back in 2006, I had 3 different brick and mortar divisions, and 2 of the partners that were in one of them. We're talking. We're thinking about a book, but the entire firm, when we were at this retreat, was like, we could all get behind a book. It would be a really impactful thing. It's something we could all contribute in a certain way, whether it's reading, editing, getting stories, and it would really unite this firm to do something bigger, to really impact more people.
Right.
And then shortly after that retreat, like a few months later, 2 of my partners died in a plane crash.
Are you kidding me? I never knew this. No.
June 9th of 2006, they died. We had a little Lancer plane. They were coming from St. George, where they had just done a speaking of our other partners event, and as they're flying home, they hit some wind shears and crashed into Utah Lake. And basically for 4 months, Ed, man, you wouldn't even recognize me because I gained 22 pounds from the day they died until just before Thanksgiving of that year. I would get up at 5 a.m. I would go do, prepare for our radio show. I would do a 2-hour radio show each day. And then I'd try to run this firm. And we were a personality-based business. We didn't have business systems. It was like 4 personalities, and we all had kind of a team that supported those personalities. We had major gaping holes in their office, especially because there was 2 partners there, so they had even less systems. And man, I kind of got to a point where I just couldn't even make simple decisions. I remember one day someone coming up, like my assistant, saying, hey, you're double booked in the next hour. What do you want to do? I'm like, oh man, double booked. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you and I could think of 100 things to resolve that in seconds.
Yeah.
But I was that brain dead at that point. So I was unhappy, gaining all this weight. I was coming home. My son, who was 1 year old at the time, was already asleep almost every day. And I remember it was Thanksgiving that we were driving down to Price, Utah, the small coal mining town where I'm from. And I had all the appearances of wealth. We had a damn Bentley that we were driving down to Price, Utah, which most people thought was probably a Chrysler 300 there. This coal mining town, they didn't even know what that was.
Right.
But,
or care, right.
Right. And so my wife and I are driving down there, and we have some of our best conversations on our drives. And so we're going through this cool canyon, Spanish Fork Canyon, and, you know, it's really pretty. And she's telling me about being an extraordinary speaker and an extraordinary business guy, although, hell, for that 4 months I didn't feel that way. And then she told me that I was just an ordinary husband and father.
Wow.
And, dude, that was transformative for me because I went from everything being about the business and preserving my partner's legacy to being confronted. And, dude, I didn't even get defensive. I mean, I actually got a bit emotional and because she was right. And within 6 days, I gave one of the divisions of that business to the key people that worked there. And I said, I'm going to start officing from home. I'm not going to answer people's phone calls. You guys can figure this stuff out. Like, I've been doing too much, and I've got to take care of myself. And when I was at home, I got rejuvenated. I got refreshed. And when my wife and kid would go to bed, I was still up with energy, and I actually wrote the book in 30 days during that time. Now, I had a co-author who was phenomenal and actually did more of the actual typing, even though it was more kind of from my brain and my content.
Right. That's okay. That's okay. Right. Yeah.
But hell, yeah, 30 days instead of 3 years of dinking around. We got the manuscript done in 30 days, and within 4 months of the time that we started that, we had a physical copy in my hands, and then a year later I decided to get it published and take it to the New York Times, and we were able to accomplish that as well.
You know, isn't that amazing? Do you watch the have you ever seen that HBO show Westworld?
I've seen the first 2.5 episodes, so I'm just starting to get into it.
Well, there's like this cool scene. It gets better as you get moving on. Because at first I'm like, what is going on here? But like, to give everyone like the 30-second view is like, you know, they built this little world that people can go live their fantasies and do whatever. But the characters in it are like robots and they're programmed, right? And now it's like the eighth episode or whatever, and the lady who runs the whorehouse, African American woman, realized she's a robot. But she has memories. Okay, I don't know if I'm getting a little too deep here or not. But she tricks one of the programmers to upgrade her perceptual awareness to know that she's being manipulated. Mm-hmm. And once she increases her perceptual awareness, she now sees the bigger picture, and she's like, and like there was a phrase and let's go back to your story a little bit. There was a phrase in the last episode where she was like, I'm getting out of here, and it's time I start writing my own story. Like I'm probably not even giving it justice, but like it viscerally went through my body of like, wow, isn't that the decision point that if you listen to everybody's story, there's a point where they say, I'm only going to do what I'm going to write Garrett's story. Garrett's going to go write his own frickin' story. And you kind of made that decision out of necessity, pain, whatever it might be for you. Mm-hmm. And then everything turned, it seems like.
Man, it's amazing how you could just have that one moment that makes this, it's like one of those defining line of demarcation moments. And I had a pretty big choice to make, and 6 days later, I no longer have that division of the office, and it was like a portal to genius open up. Like I could think clearly, I could write, I could get so much more done. And I got to tell you, honestly, I guess more candidly is the better word, I didn't really believe you could have it all before that moment. I thought, because I came from this coal mining town, it was so much about hard work.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just worked harder than anyone else, you could live a better life in the future than anyone else. But that kind of false belief that I had held on to, I finally figured out that balance may be nearly impossible because we're all out of balance at certain segments or times of our life, but depth is absolutely attainable. And that's what we're really looking for, is depth of experience and harmony in life. And for the first time, I got to see that. And I was like, wait, I can actually have it all if I know what the hell all means. And I just get really deliberate and intentional about life rather than just putting my nose to the grindstone, because I kind of have this philosophy of, if you don't have a financial philosophy, or if you have a bad philosophy, hard work can never compensate for that. It can only exacerbate the problem.
I love it.
Growing up in a coal mining town, I watched that over and over again.
Yeah. So do you mind expanding on that a little bit and kind of how you're? Because I grew up in a great neighborhood, south side of Chicago, very mixed. You have blue collar, white collar mixed, and I grew up in the electrician family, right? So we were always, a lot of my brothers, my dad was an electrician, I think, for 40-something years. And nowadays, I think a lot of the false promises that were created in like the industrial age just don't work anymore at all.
Right.
And it's coming full circle. And I think a lot of these traps are actually going to be more exacerbated, meaning people who think going and getting a job, staying in it for 40 years, and you're going to come out with some kind of somebody taking care of you is only going to become more harmful to people every year that goes by. So do you mind sharing a little bit about that transition of awareness of being in a coal mining town all the way to now, like understanding that you control your I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
sure.
That kind of journey?
No, we're on the same wavelength here for sure. So I came from a family that was not entrepreneurial. My great-grandfathers, coal miners. Both grandfathers were coal miners, and my dad was a coal miner. So the only person in my family that had a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit is really my grandfather, who, even though he's a coal miner, he played the accordion in a band and they traveled around, and he had a TV repair shop that was a garage attached to his house, and he had a van, and he would drive around this little town, East Carbon, Utah, selling Zenith TVs and repairing them back when they were like pieces of furniture more than they were TVs.
I love it.
And I mean, I was 5 years old. I was traveling around with him, to these little things, and he was winning community awards, and he was beloved and known to all the people in this community. And so I kind of had this little bit of an entrepreneurial bug that came from that experience. So when I was 15, I started my first official business that wasn't like babysitting or mowing lawns. It was actually detailing cars.
Love it.
And my dad, being a coal miner, I detailed the coal mining vehicles that were surface vehicles when the bosses would come in. My mom worked for the credit union. I detailed all the repossessed vehicles there, and then I just started to, get a lot of clients where when I turned 16, I could pick up their car and deliver it by the time it was, time for them to go back to or leave for home or whatever. And I was playing sports, so it was the only thing that my parents would really support. They didn't want me to get a job because I'd have to kind of, it'd be hard to navigate sports and a job, but I had this business. Well, now I'm graduating from college, and for 4 years I've been in financial services from the time I really got in college. And everyone I talked to was like, oh, you should work for, like, I had job offers from Merrill Lynch, Arthur Andersen or Anderson, and Strong Investments, and these were top tier firms that are annihilated now and they're gone.
Yeah.
But my parents, my grandparents, everyone was really encouraging me to take those jobs, and including my professors, because I was a good interviewer, so I could go in and get a job even though I didn't know half the damn acronyms in the accounting field that they were interviewing me about, and yet it was a good offer, supposedly, moving to LA for $65,000 salary, which was basically work, 12 to 16 to 18-hour days, and by the time you look at it, would be pretty low quality of living. Well, everyone was encouraging me to take those things, which there's no security in that. Strong Investments was the number 2 investment company in the world when they gave me an offer to be on the institutional investment side, and they don't exist today.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Anderson doesn't exist. American Investment Bank doesn't exist. So 4 of like the 11 job offers I had in 99, they don't even exist, right? But I was even helping my grandfather out because all of his money was tied up because his oldest sister and his other sister, they put all their money in their oldest sister's account because she took care of their mom who lived at 103, this Italian family. And all of a sudden my great aunt gets sick, gets put in the hospital. Now my grandpa's worried about losing all that money. I go through and help preserve 2/3 of it immediately by getting the right documentation, learning about it, reading about it, studying it on my own. And a third would have been fully protected if she lived 3 years or longer, which she did. So I actually saved a ton of money for them. And I remember my grandfather sitting with me at the hospital and saying, hey, thanks so much. This means a lot. When are you going to get a real job? Which job are you going to take? I'm like, damn, look at this. Like, they believed if I just worked hard and I went and got one of these jobs, mind you, they didn't let me step foot into mine, but they thought that that's where the security would be, the pensions that were offered, the perks, the benefits. And you know what? I only had one guy. It was the dean of the college I went to that said, you're making more than your professors and you're making more than your family. Why would you give that up to go work one of these so-called jobs? You're just not built for that. So thank God for Dean Templin encouraging me.
Yeah, good for him.
You know?
God bless that guy. Holy cow.
Yeah, man. And I still do stuff for my university all the time. And for him in particular, still see him pretty regularly because, man, that was some solid advice and really changed my life. So just to finish the story out, that year, one of my professors became a client. He used to manage $5 billion in muni bond funds. And just the money I made from him and a few other people gave me a six-figure month that month. And so I showed my grandfather how much was in my bank account. It was more than he'd ever made in a year.
Wow.
By a decent amount. And I got to tell you, man, the rest of his life, there wasn't a day that went by that he did not get teary-eyed and grab me by the arm when he saw me and tell me how proud he was.
Yeah.
Because that changes a family's financial future, and it gives some hope to other people if you can break that mold of scarcity and aiming for security, because the only security we have is value creation. It's not in a job. It's in the value that we provide. And man, there's a lot of people going the wrong way that way.
Yeah, and I really love that you're saying this, man, because I before we got on the call, after in my book I talk about I think chapter 3 is it's called The Trap, right? And it just walks through the linear sequential trap of you go to school, you go from first grade to second grade all the way up to school, high school, then you're supposed to go to college, and then assuming you come out of college, you're supposed to go get a great job, and then you're supposed to get married, and you're supposed to accumulate a car, a house, have a couple kids. And it's like it's not till most people are in their 30s to 40s that they wake up and they're like, what the F is going on here? I have no control. Like, I am not my own. I'm not defining where I'm going. I'm seeking shelter everywhere else, and and everybody's been telling me I'm doing a great job. And it's only till you like really step back and evaluate, you're like, wait a second here. I'm 45. I'm out of shape. My wife doesn't like me. My kids don't know me because I've been spending all this time at work or at my business. And I really, if I do the math, there's no frickin' way that I could be retired. From a financial perspective, I know you have similar philosophies on retirement as I do, which we can get into in a second. But the math does not work out for these guys or gals. So what is the pathway then, like, what is the pathway? I'll give you a big open-ended question, Garrett, and I'll let you go with it. What is the real new pathway for financial freedom in today's day and age?
All right, man. So I'll give a two-part answer. Number one, so there's what I call financial independence, and then what I would call financial freedom. Financial independence is when you have enough recurring revenue to cover your expenses that comes in on a monthly basis. And that recurring revenue, if it's coming from investments or entrepreneurial income, which is the income that comes in from your organization, not that you're not directly involved with, so it's not all the income, it's a portion of the income. When that covers your expenses, you're financially independent or economically independent.
Great.
Financial freedom is a state of mind where money is not the primary reason or excuse why we do or don't do something. So when money's not the primary reason or excuse why someone does or doesn't do something, they have financial freedom. It's still a consideration, it's just not the primary consideration. And so that's something that people can achieve immediately if they embrace abundance, if they shun scarcity, and if they continue to think resourcefully, regardless of the amount of resources they have financially. That can bring financial freedom. But economic and financial independence is where most people absolutely fall flat on their face, and that you could read hundreds, if not thousands, of financial books, and they would miss the most key ingredient. But I've broken it down to the 5 components that create that.
Let's hear it. Yep.
The first one is to boost your bottom line. You could call it profit boosting, you could call it keeping more of what you make, or sometimes I call it cash recovery. So a lot of people overpay tax. They overpay hidden fees and commissions with their investments. They overpay on interest because they don't have the right credit score or cash flow structure to negotiate the best interest rates. or they overpay on duplicate coverages or costs with their insurance. So before you go save more money, get more efficient with your money. That's the first step. And if there's leaks in the bucket, adding more water, there's still money leaking out the other side. And it's kind of like the treadmill dilemma. Yeah, you can turn up the treadmill, you'll run harder, but it doesn't mean that you're going further. You're standing in place.
Yeah,
and I think that happens to a lot of businesses and individuals because there's something at work called Parkinson's Law. And it happens with time. You know, if someone says, I'm going to get this done Friday by 5, a lot of times they start working on Friday at 4. It just, time fills in. If people don't know how to time collapse and if people don't know how to, manage that. The second thing is with money, if income goes up, expenses rise to meet or exceed that increase within 3 to 6 months. So the problem is exceed. There's some people making more money now that are in a much worse financial position they've ever been in because they spend optimism, because they think making more money is always the solution. And even though it's helpful, it's not always the best solution if you don't know how much you're actually keeping. So first is keep more of what you make. Second, to strategically engineer wealth. Actually have a roadmap and have an X marks the spot to say, what is your economic independence number? Most people don't know what that number is. So my friend Joe Polish says fuzzy targets never get hit. Well, that's the problem is for most people, economic independence is a fuzzy target. And so they don't know how to engineer a way to get there.
Yeah.
Right?
By the way, I love Joe. I just want to shout out to Joe Polish because I know he's listening. If he's not, you and I could harass him to listen to this. This is great.
Exactly. We'll definitely do that. So strategically engineering wealth. It would take a long time to explain every detail of it, but let me just break it down to this. You get your foundation handled. Your foundation is, number one, you pay yourself first. So you take a percentage off the top, put it in a separate account other than your normal checking or business account, so that you now have money set aside to build up liquidity. And once money builds up in that checking or savings account, you deliberately and intentionally choose to invest it instead of automatically. The key is to automatically save and deliberately invest, not automatically invest and forget about savings most people do.
Yep, love it.
So once the foundation's built, then you build some safety measures, which is everything from setting up, if you have more wealth, an asset protection trust or a basic estate plan, or if you have a company, a corporation. It's just things that help you preserve and keep your wealth so that when you're more successful, the financial predators out there that want your money can't get access to it. And then the third part of strategically engineering wealth is what I would call growth, which is figure out your investor DNA and only invest in things that are in alignment with your competencies, your drivers, your values, and stay focused instead of diversifying. So you only invest in things that you know and understand, and if you don't, you keep it liquid, you keep it safe. So that's stuff that if we read enough books, we could get those answers, right? Now the third piece is to accelerate investment income. And this is where Kiyosaki did a great job with Rich Dad Poor Dad, saying, hey, don't invest for accumulation, invest for cash flow. So look at every asset that someone has and say, is this currently producing cash flow for you? If it's not, it's a lazy or dead asset. You've got to have it start producing cash flow rather than waiting for 10, 20, 30 years down the road for it to start working, because it just doesn't work. And then the fourth one, this is the game changer, okay? The fourth piece is where the books miss it. They don't tell you about it. And if you don't do this fourth piece, it is going to be a slow, tough track where you're going to be dependent upon a lot of factors outside of your control, and that's to scale business revenue. Entrepreneurship is the greatest single strategic advantage in today's world, and it's never been easier to be an entrepreneur because you don't have to have a bunch of startup capital to be an entrepreneur.
That's right.
The internet is brilliant. I mean, people could freaking drive a car. They could do graphic design. They could do, random tasks. There's so many ways to just start earning an income that doesn't require you to be an employee or beholden to just one company, that can start to create additional cash flow so that you can kind of ease your way in and bootstrap your way into building a business. You don't have to go raise millions of dollars. You can just do it by your own cash flows that you create. And if you don't own a business, here's the deal. There's a book that John Bowen put out that talked about 91% of people worth $5 million or more did it because they owned a business. So people worth $5 million or more have a business. There's only 9% of people with that level of wealth that don't own a business. I guess they're heirs, part of the Lucky Sperm Club. they run, governments or whatever it is. I mean, there are those people who weren't entrepreneurs, but how many books that are out there talking about saving, scrimping, budgeting, putting money into all these different things, but don't talk about being a business owner? They are not fully valid in my eyes to helping people financially.
Yeah, I think that we'll talk about some of the tax strategies here in a second, but it's like, and I talk about this in time collapsing. Like we live in a world right now that even people who are employed, they might not realize it, but they are actually entrepreneurs that are clueless inside a job that can end tomorrow. I mean, isn't it amazing how Uber created, and they almost put the cab industry out of business, created how many jobs, and in less than 3 years, they're automating through driverless cars. They may put out that whole industry that they just created.
Totally.
So the reason I actually think I may start creating training courses for millennials and younger is because, not because it's my passion, because my kids need to hear this advice. Like, this is the future, guys. I mean, and I think more baby boomers than ever are starting to realize, like, oh my God, I might live for 40, 50 more years. I'm 40 years old, and I just realized my pension's not going to cover anything that. So yeah, you need to be an entrepreneur. You need to be a business owner.
Well, and look, man, I read Tony Robbins' book, Money Master the Game.
Yeah.
And I thought it was much better than most financial books. But what was interesting about it is Tony made his money being a business owner. But he doesn't talk about that in the book.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, how are you going to find this money? How are you going to find $250,000 to put into a fund that you can't, an insurance product that you can't touch for 15 years, and then do that 3 to 4 years in a row to qualify? Like, you have to have cash flow being thrown off somewhere, right?
Right, and so he interviews all these billionaires.
Yeah.
And the billionaires are so blinded to giving actual good advice for the most part. Because when he asked Charles Schwab what people should do, he said invest in discount brokerage accounts. Dude, Charles Schwab didn't make his money putting money in a discount brokerage account. He made it inventing the damn thing. Or asking the founder of Vanguard where people should put their money. Oh, they should put it in index funds. He didn't make his money putting money in index funds. He made his money inventing and selling index funds. Totally.
Well, and what was the one dude's name too? Really famous guy, but anyhow, he said God bless Tony for saying, hey, give me the formula. And so he's like, all right, well, I'll give you the formula I'd give my daughter. And he give him the formula that he created, right? So it's really interesting.
There was one billionaire in the book, Mark Farber, the boom, doom, and gloom guy.
Yeah.
That when Tony asked him, hey, if you couldn't leave money behind to your kids, what one thing would you want to leave behind to me? He said, I leave them with this. They should figure out what they're absolutely great at, or they have some type of insider's advantage, and build a business around it, because it's the only way to make real money in this world.
Isn't that
I was like,
the truth?
Bam, there's the guy who spoke the truth in the book.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? So I want to go a little deeper on a couple things. Like you said, wow, scale of business revenue, that's the big one. Well, I already wrote like 3 notes prior to that I wanted to go deeper on.
And by the way, I didn't even say the 5th one.
Let's give it. Yeah, sorry, bro.
It's to make it count. It's legacy. It's actually treating yourself as your greatest asset, not your stocks and bonds and real estate, but actually enjoying life along the way.
Zero question.
What's that?
I said zero. Yeah, keep going, man. Zero question. I'm just saying amen in a different way.
Nice. So, Benjamin Franklin said, wealth isn't the man that has it, but the man that lives it.
Yes, zero question. Yeah, totally.
If you don't take care of yourself, you don't have much to give.
Yep.
So that's the 5th piece, and it's kind of like this notion of retiring retirement, and instead redefining it to be something that you retire from those things that you hate, but stay engaged in some purposeful thing that's profitable so that you're in control of your financial future, not some market, not interest rate changes, not tax hikes, and not letting inflation confiscate your life away in retirement, because the number one fear of retirees is the fear of running out of money. What a horrible existence that this dream that's been sold to everyone is actually a damn nightmare. And so, anyway, that's my little diatribe with the 5th part. It's like, hey, I'm going to Italy for 2 months next year. I'm not waiting until I'm 65. I'm taking 2 months, but I'm still going to be engaged in doing podcasts and, writing books and stuff while I'm there. But I'm going to spend a lot of time with my family. Then I'll come back after 2 months and back to, the house that we live in and continue to run my businesses. But I'm not waiting until I'm 65 to do that stuff, because I don't want to do it permanently. I think it sounds horrible to be sitting somewhere for 12 months or 24 months with nothing to do but going to lunch. Lunch is a nice reward when I've done something great, but to do it every single day and then wait around, I think that's like, I think people lose purpose. They get pissed off and they die.
Well, yeah, even going back like into Psychology of Winning by Dennis Waitley years ago, he said the study was if most people die 4 to 5 years after they retire because they have no goals, they have no targets, they have nothing to hit. That's
the first guy I ever interviewed was Dennis Waitley.
Dude, that was the first audio book I ever listened to that when I was in college getting my nursing degree. I went into my coach's office and I saw up on a shelf were like these 2 audio programs, Dennis Waitley, Psychology of Winning and Lead the Field by Earl Nightingale. And I asked if I could borrow them. I've never given them back. But it was like the first time in my life that I ever heard, wow, you control your mind, you control your vision, you can control everything. I was like, oh my God, it changed everything. I dropped out. I didn't drop out of nursing school. I got my degree, but I didn't go into it. And then that's when I just set out and stumbled as an entrepreneur. Wow, he's still alive, isn't he, Garrett?
Yeah.
Dennis?
I met him at this health retreat in Rosarito, Mexico, called San Aviv, and then he was coming to Utah, and I went and interviewed him at his hotel room at the Little America, and we've kept a little bit in touch. He spoke at an event back when I was reading off of my slides, man. I was such a newbie to speaking at the time. Yeah. It was painful, but he was super nice and still let me interview him after that and got up on stage with me for a minute. So, cool. Pretty interesting.
Very, very cool. Going back, you said one great misconception I think most people have about money is, automatic investments. Get into your automatic investments. And you said something that I don't know if I've heard it this way before, so I really made note of it, which is automatic savings. And why, what is Warren Buffett's partner? Charlie Munger says, there's going to be an opportunity or you're better off staying liquid. And this isn't his exact, you may know the quote better than I do, but there will become a time in life where an opportunity will come across your plate or in your life that is so ridiculously obvious that at that moment you need to pretty much put everything into it. But what I realized was that something you had taught was most entrepreneurs and most people are so illiquid because they're taught to automate their investments, and so when those opportunities come by, they can't really take advantage of them. Can you go a little deeper on the difference between automatic investments and automatic savings?
So, financial people tend to underemphasize liquidity simply because they don't get paid on it. So there's a lot of notion of start saving early, but what they mean is that's a good notion, but they're saying start investing early. The earlier, the longer you have, the more compound interest works in your favor, blah, blah, blah. This is all crap, by the way. Compound interest works best for the institutions more than it does the individual. I just haven't met many people that got rich because of compound interest that weren't the ones selling it versus the ones that were actually benefiting by utilizing it. So I say it this way. Rookie investors always stay invested. Seasoned investors sit on cash until the right opportunity comes their way. And they're patient. So, there's a guy, Martin Armstrong, that was a hedge fund manager of the year in 99. He was in cash 75% of the time and only invested 25% of the time. The 2 biggest years we've ever had when we used to manage money, we don't manage money anymore, but, we did 41% in 2001 and 44% in 2002. Everyone else lost their ass for the most part those years, but we sat in cash the entire time, and we're only invested less than 20% of the time during those years when the opportunity was right, which was simple. If the U.S. market went up by 1%, we moved internationally overnight, and then we came back into the cash the next day. And we were right the majority of the time, like 4 out of 5 times. So I think that it's this notion of, dollar cost average. You're in it for the long haul. Buy when the market's on sale. Look, what the reality is only invest in things you know. Stay in cash because the best investors in history were a lot more like predators from a standpoint of when they saw the opportunity, they jumped on it during downtimes. McDonald's got massive during recessions because it bought more real estate. Apple grew exponentially because it really invested heavily during difficult times. That's when everybody starts cashing out and getting afraid, and that's where the big boys start playing, because that's where those amazing opportunities come up. And you got to think more about having an opportunity fund than having a retirement plan. Yet 99% of the world has a retirement plan and no opportunity fund. Hence, they're always subject to a low-performing, market-based, poverty-level kind of performance. So it's really different than what a lot of people teach in most of the books out there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one more thing. Like, billionaire investor Chris Sacca, or Chris, if I'm saying his name correctly. He's on Shark Tank right now.
Okay, yeah.
He's good friends with Tim Ferriss, and he was explaining his investment strategy. And I was like, this is such a simple investment. Now, obviously, he's getting opportunities that you and I might not be getting right now, but then maybe what it looks like. So what it is he needs to understand it well enough that he could make an impact on it. And whether you're investing $500 or $500 million into something, that's a really good philosophy, which then you backtrack it means you have to be understanding what your superpower is, or where you can create the most amount of value somewhere. Is this kind of, are we speaking the same language a little bit here?
Totally. I mean, look, man, Tim has a great investment philosophy. He moved to Silicon Valley because he's invested heavily in tech, but he's frugal. He had plenty of cash on hand. He didn't speculate with a lot of these investments that hit big for him, other than money he could afford to lose, and had major upside. So when we see all these people on the front of a magazine that hit it big, the poor and middle class and upper middle class try to mimic that, not realizing all of the rest of the things that were in place that gave them permission to do that. So now they put too much of their lives at stake in something that they have little knowledge or control over. I mean, when I met Tim, he was with Matt Mullenweg, and Matt was the founder of WordPress. I mean, what percentage of the internet does WordPress own? Yeah. I mean, I've spoken at several events where Tim spoke, and he's always hanging out with people from Silicon Valley. He's more in the know. He researches, he studies, he's in conversation with them. So for someone to go try to do the same thing without that level of understanding, I don't invest in technology because I don't understand the trends quick enough. I'm not reading about it. I'm not passionate about it.
Yeah, totally.
I don't really have ability around it. So what's a good investment for one person is not a good investment for the other, because it's based upon who you are and how you relate to that investment. Totally.
And Sacca said something that I think he was on a different interview, and I want him on my show. So if anyone knows him, I love an introduction. He was saying how when he invested in Twitter, and this is totally how I operate because I can't help myself, is he just started showing up at the office. And helping. And it was like he didn't really know what to do. No one asked him to help. He just did it. And the amount of doorways that now opens, and then the level of understanding you have. And I think the older I get, the more I realize by helping, if you can't help somewhere, you probably shouldn't even be playing in the sphere. And if you can, then you should do whatever it takes to just create ridiculous value without worrying about your payback, because it'll come to you exponentially, because everybody else is trying to take. There's very few givers in the world. So be that guy,
Yeah, and look, what I call that is he utilized his own human life value, his knowledge and skills, and he looked at how to relate and contribute to the investment. Most people, I have this thing called the investor scorecard, which is how aligned is your investment with your investor DNA? So it's not like risk tolerance garbage that says, scale of 1 to 5, how much risk are you willing to take it? It has more to do with how you relate to it, what kind of cash flows coming in, what kind of exit strategy you have, what you can do to contribute if something goes wrong. Is it going to be that you become a voice that's a problem for the people that we invested, or are you going to be a voice that's helpful for them? So it's that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I think that the world of investing has become more about gambling for most people, and that investing is when you understand the value proposition, how you're going to benefit from it, how whoever you give the money to benefits from it, and how it impacts the marketplace. And if you're not clear on all three, then you don't know the value proposition. And I don't invest in investments that aren't aligned in my value propositions, because I don't want to do zero-sum games like options that one person wins, the other person loses. Yeah. And that's what a lot of people just get so seduced because it's sexy to invest in some of these complicated things, but it's complicated for a reason. Most people don't know what the hell they're doing. That's gambling. It's not investing.
Yeah, totally. All right, so we have 10 minutes left. I wanna take the next 5 minutes to go into specific tactics and strategies, so that our listeners walk away with like a glimpse of specifically stuff they could do, whether they get this before the end of the year or the end of next year, and then circle back to what about the Rockefeller habits and what you guys or Rockefellers do, and what Wealth Factory.
Not the Burn Harness.
I know, man. Sorry, I just totally blew that.
Man, I probably got my title from him, to be honest.
All right, sweet. So let's dive into some. So what can some of our listeners do today to have immediate impact?
All right, so let me give a framework, since you kind of stated that we'll talk tax. So here's the framework for taxes. 2 things to avoid doing. Number 1, don't spend $1 to save 40 cents or 30 cents. Don't buy something you wouldn't have bought otherwise. And so I say it this way: fundamentals first, taxes second. If you let the tax tail wag the dog and only do something in the name of saving tax, that could be repealed, revoked, or changed, and all of a sudden you don't have economic value attached to it. When Reagan drastically reduced taxes in the 80s, real estate values changed dramatically for people who were buying it just for the tax advantage. The second trap is don't just defer taxes into the future thinking that you're saving, because 1, you're probably listening to this podcast because you plan on being more successful in the future, not less successful. And even if we look at the current political environment where they're talking about substantially reducing taxes, the deficits are pretty high when it comes to the U.S. And if we look at that situation, I think that most people expect over their lifetime taxes are going to go up, even if they temporarily go down. So if you're deferring into a rate that might be higher, that's problematic. I don't like playing that gamble where I let the government be a partner with me, that I'm completely reliant upon whatever percentage they say they want in the future. And so that's another issue. So don't just spend $1 to save money. Don't just defer taxes. So here's the 3 things you can do to improve your tax situation right now. Number 1, be proactive. As simple as that is, what I mean by that is make sure you have your data. Make sure you know what's going on with your financials, and meet with a tax professional every quarter before you send off your quarterly payments, and talk to them about what other things you could be doing, get in a conversation, ask them what you could write off. And when you're talking to your tax professional, you're not talking to the IRS. So ask for anything and everything and let them tell you whether it's acceptable or not and what law supports that. So being proactive is really key. And part of being proactive is, as you gain more success, you may have to replace your accounting professionals and upgrade. If you're making multi-millions, you need a tax attorney, where you might not need that when you're just starting a business. You know, if you own a building, you need a cost segregation engineer, because that's going to save you extra money. So it requires a team, and it requires you being proactive and getting the data to them. That's number 1. Number 2, if you own a business, you have a huge advantage to take tax deductions. But the majority of individuals don't take all their write-offs if they could. So what you want to do is any expense you have that could be attached to the business in any way, shape, or form can become a deduction. So I do this all the time. I pay my kids. That's a $6,300 tax deduction for me, and it's not taxable income for them. I use my home for events. I can do that 14 days a year. I can write that off completely in the business, but I don't have to claim that as personal income. I have a production company, so all of my equipment for that, the clothes I wear that are uniform based, that I'm on stage with, I can write that kind of stuff off. There's so many deductions that people miss out on. Almost every business owner misses out on deductions because they don't use that criteria of, can I relate this to the business? If you can, you deduct it. And as long as you have it documented and a simple story that goes along with it, it can save you a tremendous amount of money. And then the third piece is to reclassify income. Passive income is taxed less than W-2 income. Capital gains income is taxed lower than ordinary income. You know, those kind of things. There's so many different ways to reclassify income. So if you own a building, charge yourself the highest rent rather than pay yourself the highest salary. If you, if you can, other ways to make it more passive would be distributions and differentiating your income. Taking a salary, but anything above a reasonable salary, taking it in distributions, won't get hit with self-employment tax, which can save you 15.3%. So there's, I'm giving you a framework that regardless of who's in office, regardless of the tax laws, I've given you the 2 tax traps to avoid and the 3 things to actually do that could save you an enormous amount of money. Now, I can give strategies, like hundreds of strategies within that framework, but now that you know that, you can speak better to your financial professionals.
Yeah, so Garrett, one thing you had said that was that, what is it called when you go back 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years?
Amending your returns. When my partners died in 2006, I didn't take good care of I wasn't proactive. I didn't get my information over to the accounting team. I filed an extension. Come to find out, I'd overpaid my taxes by $54,000. We were able to amend my returns and go back and get that money back. So you can go back 3 years in amended returns and get the IRS to write you a check.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. Because as an entrepreneur, as you know, you're so busy trying to grow the business and grow sales that taxes and many of these strategies are like afterthoughts, meaning you're just being told what you need to pay. You know what I mean? So this is where you guys, fill the leaky bucket. I love it. I love it.
And think about what bigger bill do we have in our life than taxes?
You don't. That's why actually I was looking at, what I was looking at here, man, was with some of our college or insurance, we do like some guaranteed insurance programs, which I need to possibly reevaluate here with our kids, and it's like $2,500 per kid. I have 7 kids. Mm-hmm. So I might be doing a guaranteed 7% return on the insurance plan, but 30%, what would be my savings per kid? Is that am I 30% tax savings on that, or is that like 15%?
It's probably like 39.6.
Yeah, so by just paying them, then using that money then we could redirect it towards what, their tuition or even...
what I do is I pay it to their account, and then I actually put the $6,300 into a guaranteed insurance product as well for both of my kids.
Yeah, but you're saving. Yeah, that's craziness. Okay, cool. So just simple restructuring. It's taking money we already have and putting it back in our pocket, but leveraging it. I love it.
Exactly.
I love it.
And I talk about some of that stuff and what would the Rockefellers do for sure. So
cool.
I'm happy to hook people up with that.
So we have a few minutes left. Let's talk about. By the way, man, I know you and I can talk for days because this is the. We're a lot alike in a lot of ways. I gotta send you out because I know you like having good food while you travel. I gotta send out the company that I invested in helping them is No Foods, KNOWFOODS.com. It's like made of almonds, chia seeds, egg whites. It just tastes amazing. Some I think flaxseed oil. Yeah, it's amazing. But you won't know it's healthy. It just tastes awesome.
That's what I love. That's my favorite stuff right there, man.
I'll make that as part. We'll start getting you as part of your travel kit when you speak because I know you like your kit. So for the next few minutes, how could let's talk about what would the Rockefellers do and how people can get in your world and learn more from you and be part of Wealth Factory, etc.
Cool. So I set up they can text
801-396-7211. 801-396-7211. 801-396-7211.
And they just text WWRD, as in what would the Rockefellers do? WWRD.
Yeah.
And we'll hook them up with a download of the book immediately. And if they want a hardcover copy, they just cover the shipping. And even when that happens, I'm still buying the book for them because the book cost us $11.50 a book because of just, awesome cover, matte finish, all that kind of stuff. And we only did a 2,000 print run because we really didn't want this getting into all the financial advisors' hands. We wanted to get it into the right people's hands.
Yep.
And then there's a lot of strategy inside of it. Like the Vanderbilts lost their wealth even though they had more than the U.S. Treasury after just a few generations. And 54 years after Cornelius died, the first Vanderbilt died broke. Yet the Rockefellers are on their 6th generation, donated $50 million to charity this year. And they just did a few things different that are pretty major. So I share that. I talk about very specific strategy. If anyone's read Killing Sacred Cows, very philosophical, important to have that philosophy down. But now I combine philosophy and strategy and what would the Rockefellers do. And I think you'll really enjoy the book, so you can get that down.
801-396-7211.
WWRD in the subject line, and we'll hook you up. And or you can go to Amazon and pay $1,000 for it. I'm cool if you do that too, or you can just take this.
Awesome. And then tell everybody a little bit about your what you do at the Wealth Factory workshop. If you got another minute or two, just to kind of give the pitch on that, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, man. So we do these workshops. We did in 2016, we did 14 of them because we keep them intimate, 53 people or less. In 2017, we're going to let one of them be a little bit bigger, the 150 people, just to see how that goes. We got a different venue than our headquarters, but we do 3 days where we go through where they set financially, where they not, where's their financial blind spots, so they can eliminate that and eliminate financial surprises that derail them. We figure out what their economic independence number is and all the different ways that they can boost their cash flow and keep more of what they make. They'll roll up their sleeves and work on their personal stuff, and my team will walk around and they can ask them personal questions during that. We help them uncover and decode their investor DNA. We go through and help them figure out how they can enjoy life more along the way.
Yeah.
Now that they have improved cash flow, how to create automated structures for savings, and very specifically what they do there, how they can start earning interest in places they're paying it, where they can cut out the middlemen and start, extracting that money rather than having the bank siphon that away from them. So it's a pretty cool event because there's no outside speakers. It's me and 4 other speakers from my team, and we keep it entertaining and fun, and at the same time give them plenty of stuff that they can actually implement, and whether they work with us or not after that, they have the entire plan in their hands of what to do. Some people hire us because they want us to help them get it all implemented more efficiently, and they've got a lot more money than they have time, but we can only work with 125 people a year on that. So,
yeah.
We obviously put more than that through this workshop.
Dude, you are, I love it. I love it. My wife and I are going to have to attend this year because this is too good.
You are my guest, as we said, man. I'd love to have you there.
I think it was David Gonzalez who said he just went and signed up as a client. He said he was blown away, and he's surrounded by a lot of really smart guys, so it says a lot. Well, hey, Garrett, we're out of time, man. I know it's kind of one of those things, so I need to let you go. But is there?
Dude, thanks so much, though, man.
Really just any last parting words you want to share with people?
Instead of accumulating, focus on cash flow. Cash flow will get you free a lot faster. Finance doesn't have to be complex, and there's just certain things that you basically handle that it can get you in a lot better position. But most importantly, make sure that you have plenty of cash on hand, you invest in yourself, and you just spend time with the right people, because you can have amazing people in your life, but it only takes one a-hole to ruin the whole thing. So be really selective with who you spend your time with.
I love it. Well, everybody,
Thanks, man. Really enjoy spending time with you.
Yeah, no, everybody, that's my main man, Garrett Gunderson. Please check him out, and I will have in show notes and also on my outro, I'll give a little more details on that. But thanks so much, Garrett. You're the best, man.
Hey, man. Take care.
Hey, it's Ed here. Thanks again for listening. But real quick before you leave, I want to tell you about 2 quick things. The 2 most common questions I get, and I want to answer them for you before I let you go and give you a special offer. So for entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, people who just like what we're doing here at Ed O'Keefe Show, if you need help growing your business, figuring out a business, accelerating up the speed at which you accomplish your goals, make an impact, create bigger contribution while building a life that you were really meant to lead, first and foremost, do me a favor and subscribe to Ed O'Keefe Show, the podcast, and share it. This is a mission I have to have 1 million people downloading this every single month, and I cannot do that on my own. Secondly, pick up my book at www.timecollapsing.com. I give it away absolutely free. I just ask you pay shipping and handling, and people ask me all the time, like, why are you giving it away free? Well, bluntly put, because I think I can make a bigger contribution in this world by getting that book into 1 million people's hands as quickly as humanly possible. Now, obviously, we have academies and coaching clubs and seminars we put on, and if those fit for you, come join us. But please, pick up the book and let me know what you think about it. Secondly, if you're an athlete or if you're not an athlete, if you're someone who has aches and pains and wants to live a long, healthy life, then I'd like to give you an opportunity to take advantage of what I call my anti-inflammation health pack. People ask me all the time, like, well, Ed, they know I own a health supplement company, and they say, like, well, do you take your supplements? And I go, yeah, there's 3 supplements I take every single day. It's Marine D3, Omega Flex, and Body Ready Omega. Now, There's a quick story behind it. So let me tell you what it is. Did you know that in 1983, or 82 to 83, did you know that obesity, heart disease, diabetes, and who knows if they can trace back Alzheimer's and other things to this same time frame, but skyrocketed in the United States. Coincidentally, it was the same exact time that the government came out and the FDA and all these people and started coming out with margarine, saying fats are bad. Well, the fact of the matter is your brain, your heart, and most of your main organs are primarily fat. So in 1976, Dr. Jorn Dyerberg went up and he actually studied these Eskimos who lived in, I want to say Denmark. I may have it off. It was, Denmark. And they discovered that these people, they call them Inuits, were eating 80% seal blubber, like literal fat, yet they had zero heart disease. And across, the world, in Japan, the other population that literally smokes, drinks, and has horrible diets, but they eat fish all the time and seafood all the time, have more centurions. You know what that means? That means that they're living past 100 years old. So what is the commonality? Well, these populations have way more omega-3s in their diet. Now, over the past few years, what's happened is fish oil has gotten a really bad rap. And in a lot of ways, deservingly so. Now, I can go into this in depth. In fact, I'm going to do a whole podcast on the story. But to give you a opportunity, go to EdO'KeefeShow.com. That's EdO'KeefeShow.com. And I'm going to have like a special link up there or a banner that's going to let you go get my anti-inflammation pack for Ed O'Keefe Show listeners at literally 50% off. Here's why. I take this product religiously, and it is the number, I have probably a 5-point process of literally diffusing inflammation in the body, because inflammation is literally the thing that's causing most diseases in the body. It's the research behind it has never been more certain, and it's only growing. That like diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, all these mega, even the big C word, which I wouldn't even say out loud on a podcast. Now, I'm not saying that our products can do anything to those diseases, okay? Because of FTC reasons, I can't make any claims. But what I would say is that if you're going to do anything to feel better, to have your joints feeling better, to have your body feeling better, I would go and make sure you are attacking the inflammatory process in your body. And these 3 products synergistically work magic on that. So I've sold over 500,000 bottles of these products. You're going to love them. We have great reviews, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So by going to EdO'KeefeShow.com, you can click on a banner or a link that's going to be there waiting for you, and it's going to take you to a page that'll give you a little bit more of a story, and as well give you a major discount that could allow you to feel as cool as I do, or better. All right, that's it. Have an amazing day, and please share this to the world. All right.
And thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode as well as all the other podcast episodes by heading on over to EdO'KeefeShow.com. If you would, please go subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and leave a rating and review. Rating and reviews truly are the best way for you to show your appreciation for the show, because they help more people find out about the podcast and decide if this is the one for them. So until next week, it's time for you to go out there, take action, and inspire the world.